Hello again, Canadians, Californians, Arizonians, Pennsylvanians, New Jerseyans, Washingtonians, Oregonians, and anyone in an Oregon box still. I wanted to finish out the week, at least the week we're taping, to say one or two more things about what we're talking about concerning the unbelievable, spine-tingling possibility that there may be no freedom of any kind anywhere. I'll wait until everyone gets through shuddering and having your spine tingled. Considering the distinct possibility that there may be no freedom of any kind anywhere, and that further, if that included neuro-revolutionists, that they would be the only ones who did not feel bad about it, who did not feel good about it, which in large part is what would make them be a damn revolutionist in the first place. If you tried to look at it like this, that from any sort of view, you would have to say that to make plans to escape, let's state the obvious. You've got to know first that you're in some way sans freedom. You've got to know in some way that you are a captive. But then you've got to know, in the case of being alive on this planet, in a 3D world, you've got to know that there is no escape from this to make any sort of final appropriate plans, which leaves out the question of the first part of the statement, because you're not going to escape from anything unless you had an idea, unless you knew that you were captive, and you're certainly not going to escape from a place from which there is no escape, unless you can finally then make some sort of pertinent, usable, appropriate plans. Get it? I slipped in a little car route tonight that if you wanted to play a game, if you were trying to spot the revolutionists on a ship, and they announce that the ship is going down and there is absolutely nothing can be done about it, which, in case you have not noticed, they announced that already. I mean, your spot is waiting. Davy Jones's locker is already laid out for you, even if it's known as Potter's Field. Everybody got a home. Even the homeless get buried. Well, either that or they rot away, and it's the same thing. So if you were on a ship and they announced that the ship is sinking and there is absolutely nothing any of us can do about it, then look around, and most of the passengers, most of the people are going to be frightened. The rest of them, well, I'm telling you, most, you know that. Look at your own passenger list. Most people are going to be frightened. They're going to get frantic about it. There'll be some others. The rest, who is not in that crowd, the rest of them are then just going to sort of act fatalistic. They're going to look resigned. And then if you really look around, and you find anybody else that wasn't part of, see, that counts for everybody. You got to understand that. That takes them all in. But if you looked around, notwithstanding that kind of reasonable logic, if you look around, there's somebody else left, they might be a revolutionist, for all I know. That's the way it went. That is right at the basis of it, is what we were talking about the last time we did an epilogue. That would be one of the definitions if you, in fact, made it very blunt and said that whatever terminology we were using, whatever verbal diagram, instead of calling it a real revolution, if we were calling it a real Buddhist or whatever, but I just stated, listen, I made up the term. I put the words together and called it a neuro-revolutionist. So I made it up by God. I just didn't bother to copyright it, but it's my term. Only I know what it means. Okay, all right. And that's what we've been working on. All right, I know that. I've been here. All right, I got to tell you. I mean, Jesus, I'm getting old, and I found out the ship's about to sink, and I got to tell you the truth before I go. That's when I feel like doing some kind of Walter Brennan imitation. Fall down my back by a campfire, or Gabby Hayes, and say, well, you know, Roy, I'm going to have to tell you the truth now. I'm going to that big round up in the sky. You know, I wouldn't go quite as fast if you'd get your knee off my throat, Roy. But if I said, all right, I made up the term, just the term, I made up the term you're a revolutionist, only I know exactly what it means, then you'd have to go, well, you got to be right, you made it up. No matter how much you know, only I know what it means, because you could do the same thing on another level. But if I say, I made it up, only I know exactly what it means, and since now I found out that I got terminal bad taste and I'm going to die soon, I'm going to tell you the truth. There is no such thing as a neurorevolutionist. There is none. Then anybody would go, okay, Then if this was some sort of even passable version of a reasonable ship, I've just announced the ship's going down and there's nothing can be done about it. I just blocked all passageways. I just announced. You can't save the ship. I'm the one that made the ship. I called it a neurorevolution. I'm telling you, there is no such thing. So I announced, we're sinking. Everybody's going down. There's no way out. Nobody can do anything. Then if you look around, then if we did it here, we'll keep switching metaphors because, hell, we don't care. Fuck a metaphor. Then if I said, all right, that's it. Then half the crowd, if this was an ordinary ship at all, most of the crowd, to go back to the Cairo tonight, most of the crowd would leave. That is, that would be the frantic and the frightened, like, well, God almighty, and they just leave. Then if I said, all right, and I looked a little bit, then the rest of them should go. They'd go, well, fuck, I should have known it was a trick. You kind of become, well, what the hell, we're all going to die anyway. I tried chanting, I tried being Hare Krishna or something. It didn't work either. Hell, I'm not surprised it's a fake either. And so they would leave. They would leave. Now that, going back to the Cairo story, that should account for everybody. But then if I did look around and there was anybody left, even though it started out stating there's no such thing as a neurorevolution, if anybody was left after everybody should have gone, after everybody reasonable is accounted for, if anybody's left, then we're back to this. You are a neurorevolutionist. I shouldn't have to do these dramatics for you people. That's ordinary. Going, oh, that makes my head hurt because a neurorevolutionist doesn't make their head hurt. It makes them, you laugh and think, aha. Makes you feel good. Except don't ask yourself why, because then you go, wait a minute. Because then you're left with all kinds of real unprofitable responses because you're back to talking about what kind of guy you are, because you'd have to say, wait a minute, why am I laughing? And then the guy on your back, of course, remember when he was questioned, he said that you had it backwards, and we didn't want to go into that tonight. But if you go ahead and say, well, wait a minute, why am I laughing over the fact of what you just said, that if there was no such thing as a neurorevolution, and that everybody's sane, or just all ordinary people left, and I was one of the ones that was still here, and now you're saying, well, you would be a neurorevolutionist, even though there is no such thing. If that drove everybody else off and you stayed, you'd be one. And then you laughed, and then you thought, why am I laughing? Then you thought, wait a minute, it's because I'm an idiot. He's calling a neurorevolutionist. He's saying, well, there would be proof. I didn't say it would be proof. Highly suspicious evidence that you're a neurorevolutionist once you find out there is no such thing. And everybody else leaves. Everybody else tries to get off the boat. That is, everybody else dives head first into the icy waters. I guess I'm pushing the metaphor because they're not going to die any faster. Suicide doesn't help ordinary people. That's what's always funny about suicide, whether you people know it or not, is it doesn't help. But they never know it. At any rate. So all the ordinary have gone. And if you stayed, then if you tried to talk about it then, which I was going ahead and lead up, trying to get you to see more of what I was talking about tonight on the public tape, if I said there's no such thing as a neurorevolutionist, there's no such thing as, well, let's stick to mine since I made it up. There's no such thing. And then everybody sane left. And you stayed here. And you thought, well, then you said that would be highly suspicious evidence that I might actually be one. But then you could, if you fell into it now about, wait a minute, what does this mean? You're now talking to the guy on your back. You're now talking about what kind of particular guy you may or may not be, because then you're left with such things as, since this does not make sense, the only thing you can say is, well, wait a minute, I'm staying here for nonsensical reasons. I'm an idiot. I'm dumb. That's all it is. It just proves that I'm crazy. See, that's the danger of talking to yourself, because as long as you talk to yourself in that manner, you're not crazy. You can talk to yourself and say, am I going crazy? But as long as you can do that, you're not going crazy. There's a chi route coming up somewhere. It's way down. We're a few weeks ahead, but those of you that like to remember, there's a guy that goes out every morning for his combination skip and reflective thinking. I think's the way it goes. And on his way out, he softly sings to himself, IBS, IBS, I be seen, I be seen. And on his way back in, the guy on his back sometimes softly sings his own version, which is UBS, UBS. I won't tell you the punchline. But that, as long as you're singing to yourself in a quite real way, this is not a lesson in psychiatry, of course, because it wouldn't work. But as long as you can talk to yourself on an ordinary basis of, am I crazy? You're all right. That doesn't mean anything for the revolution. But you see, the point I'm bringing up is not having anything to do with ordinary mental health. The point is, if you're talking to yourself, you're stabilizing yourself. Because if you're talking to yourself at the ordinary level, it's always on the basis of what kind of guy I am. Well, the kind of guy I am, to tell you the truth sometimes, think it's an ordinary person himself, the kind of guy that I am, I'm afraid is getting to be a crazy kind of guy. And then later you can go, well, since I went back on my medication, I'm not that particular kind of guy. Or since I have made great strides and have lost 10 pounds, I feel much saner. I'm all right, I think. As long as you're talking about it on the basis of what kind of guy I might be, was, could be, used to be, you're sane. That is, you're not going to die any faster than you're going to die. You're remaining an ordinary kind of guy. It would take somebody that could hear, as I said, you've already heard, but you've got to hear the truth, that the ship's sinking. Which would be no different if you were a Catholic or a Jew, an ordinary person, and the Pope came out and said, I'm sorry, I got to tell the truth. This has gone on far too long, we'll tell you the truth. This whole thing is a hoax. I know it because I've talked to God, or whatever he said. Trying to get you to see another version would be like me, and if it had been somebody else and you were involved with this 500 years ago, whatever it was called. But to say, all right, there is no such thing as a neurorevolution. Just for, yeah, it doesn't exist. The only way that anybody could benefit from that it had to be a potential neurorevolutionist to begin with, that they can benefit from hearing that which has no counterpart. They can hear that which has no other direction. Because the ordinary mind, if somebody had worked to be a Buddhist, and Buddha suddenly reappeared and said, well, I got to tell you people, I've been dead and gone now for 5,000 years, and I've been feeling real bad about that. I mean, I feel like I put one of the grand shucks on humanity, and it got all, anyway, I had to come back and say, forget it, there is no such thing as this. There would be some who would benefit from that. And it's not because of that. But what they would benefit on is they could hear it and not feel one way or the other about it. That they could have a non-polarized reaction to it. And it's named a reaction, but there is no word. That's the only way I can describe it. It's what I tried the last time, and opening up tonight on the epilogue would be that it would only be a real revolutionist that could hear that there is no such thing as a revolution, and that they could hear it and not feel good about it, not feel bad about it. What they'd really feel would be kind of revolutionary. If you can hear bad news and it's bad, you're done for. If you can hear good news and it's good, you're done for. Or if you hear bad news and it's good, you're done for, even worse. Or if you can hear good news and it's bad, it's even worse. I'll point out one more time, is why in the dictionary and in high intellectual circles throughout the history of life, getting away from religion now, another form, in the areas that would appear to be almost entirely, at least they're striving to be, almost free of dogma and superstition and religion into the world of intellect, what do they speak most highly of? The impartial mind, the objective sight. The ordinary people will say in their own language, in their own way for the last 5,000 years. There have been people saying that would be it. And they're on the right track. That is, life's letting the pre-echo show up on the old vinyl. That's the only trouble with CDs, there's no pre-echo. And God, I miss those pops and noises. Or is it in your own brain? I don't know. It would only be someplace new in the brain. You've simply got to know this by now. They could hear anything. And I'm picking out the obvious because anything you do hear that catches your attention to you, if nothing else, you can feel it in the nervous system at an emotional level, that you hear, my God, so-and-so's happened. You go, and then you begin to think. It takes a split second later. But throughout history, there's been this pre-echo seeping out in humanity that wants to continue to speak highly, and they even, of course, believe it. Because as long as you believe that you can change and it's in your dreams tomorrow, that doesn't matter whether it exists or not, as long as you can dream it exists. And so they dream the objective mind, the impartial insight, the impartial study, the impartial observation of life itself. And once they've said it, they go, to them it's a fait accompli. Oh, well, I mean, I can do it all the time, but hell, I said it. I put those words together. I got an idea what it means. That's the same thing as having it. In case those of you that like or are interested in Madison Avenue, that's where advertising came from. If you see a picture of a Ferrari and go, wow. I mean, you just saved somewhere over $100,000. Oh, I know some of you people are materialistically minded, and you're going to say, that ain't right. All right, we'll do it this way. God, I read a book on Buddhist consciousness. Wow. So you just saved yourself 10 or 12 years of going on to Kyoto and going into a monastery. You went, I read about it, that whole book. All right. Take the amount of money it would cost you to fly over to Japan and stay there, deduct the price of the book. That's how much money you saved. Which is back to the fact that only a real revolutionist will make change where it's possible. In reading about change, since everybody likes it, and even I liked it, remember the guy that got his best ideas from books? And his best ideas sucked. Yeah, but he didn't read the right book. If you're thinking about it, that's reading a book, that's planning to go on a great spiritual retreat. Damn, that's planning more than a retreat. I'm going to junk my whole life, sell everything, and I'm going over there and stay until I reach enlightenment. In your dreams tomorrow. It'd only be a real revolutionist, and you're a revolutionist, even if he didn't exist, that realizes, well, that's all a hobby. There's nothing wrong with it. You can do that. You can collect stamps. But if there's anything to be done, there's only one time to do it. Of course, it's already too late to do it right then because you were, busy running your damn mouth talking about it again. Oh, all right, I was doing it for you. It just so happened I had a extra 70 or 80 years. Is the only reason I've been doing it. Someday, though, you're going to have to shape up, which is synonymous with shut up. But you got to tell yourself that. It would only be a real revolutionist that could bear to hear this, that could bear to hear there's nothing to be done, that could go past the first stage, that everybody, you can make it sound exotic or important by saying, well, for a man to escape, he must first know he's in captivity. And Jesus, Holy Mother of God, people have been saying that for 5,000 years, but that's one of the great things about life, remember. Plagiarism is never recognized. Not with enough fanfare, and not with just, little dramatics. But a man can hear that and reach for his pen. God damn, let me write that down. A man cannot escape until he realizes, would you repeat that slower? Until he realizes he is in captivity. The humor is that I bet every damn one of you at one time wrote that down, or you heard it and asked, and thought, would he repeat that? Not me, but you heard it sometime. Because it sounds pregnant with profundity. That's nothing. Everybody's in captivity. You're alive, you're in captivity. You can't fly. You can't get up and decide, well, my nose is too big. Well, I'm too short. Everybody knows they're in captivity. The first part is nothing. The second part is beyond nothing. The second part's impossible. Because after accepting the fact that, no, you cannot escape until you realize you're in captivity. Most people that ever think they're interested in staying on board ship, most people that believe they're interested in some kind of revolution, a that'll take them the rest of their life. That's like finding one, I'm not an expert in it, but one little phony baloney stamp and thinking, God, I've never seen a stamp like that, and it carries the hobby the rest of your life. And it may turn out that those stamps are just common as hell in Bulgaria, but each person that may be interested or believe at one time that they hear about the revolution and they show up somewhere, even if it's just to a book, and they read about it. And one of the things they always come across and strikes them, you cannot escape until you realize, or it always sounds better to do it in kind of third person. A man cannot escape until he realizes his captivity. That is like the little stamp or one little thing that a man can hold and go the rest of his life if the idea of a revolution is just a hobby. Past that point, you got to be one of the ones that would not be accounted for if they announce the hobby's going down. We're all done for. Your hobby has been a waste of time. It will not float. It's going to sink. And everyone who pursued that hobby shall die. And of course, the hobby now is being myself, being a human. And they announce we're all done for. And even the voice that tells you that you're done for, he says, or you assume he's the captain. Of course, I hate to bring up to you that everybody's carrying a guy on your back, and he keeps, making these great pronouncements, and you think, well, it's the captain. Of course, some of you people of lesser neural qualities believe it's God. Your subconscious mind, those of you that still have one. But it's like you're carrying this guy, but you keep hearing these great announcements, and you think they're coming from the bridge. The ship is sinking, and I hate to tell you, there is absolutely nothing can be done. It's obviously coming from somewhere. You assume it's the bridge. But I would ask you to consider the man, one guy who carried another guy around on his back. It would only be somebody extraordinary could hear that and not, back to the dream, and not react to it. At a certain level, of course, we're playing with it because you've got to react. But if you are thinking somewhere in your brain, because you got to understand this, to hear that announcement is not a primary action. That is your reaction to it. If you doubt that, go home and find your favorite fern or a cat and say, the ship is going down and we're all done for. I'd do anything in the world to save you. You're my best friend. I can't even save me. We're all done for. The reaction of the cat or your plant is a primary reaction. And it's not just silly. Oh, sure, it's silly. All right, if you insist. There is no primary reaction to the headlines, to the information that the ship is going down. None. If there were, again, we would all be rich because I would lead, forget animals, they're too much trouble for what I had in mind. I'd start a real revolution, not just some kind of, we'd start a real army of trees. They're easier to handle. Oh, you don't have to feed them. You don't have to clean up after them. But you cannot get a primary reaction to any notion of captivity because at the primary level, remember, captivity is moot. If you want to look at the primary level as being absolute lack of freedom, if you want to call it that, which is fine, what you're describing is an absolute state of health. Because no one, except the insane, wants any freedom from the primary level. Yes, I want to be free to drink poison. Okay. Yes, I want to be free to jump off of a building. And of course you are, in both cases. But you're not sane. There is no freedom at the primary level. And there is no idea of captivity at any level but the secondary. And so to tell someone, for you to hear the announcement, and you people are better prepared, we'll assume, in your past point of worrying about from the gods or whatever, it is simply a knowledge. It is a continuing announcement. It is, if you like to see it, it is like a constant now in the secondary realm of man, the knowledge. The announcement goes on all the time. The ship is going down. There's nothing you can do about it. It doesn't come out that way, but you simply pick up the paper and you find out that the president died, the Pope died, or you find out that a relative died, or you're driving down the street and you see a horrible car wreck and they're covering up a body. Or you pick up the paper and it says, experts say depression just around the corner and we'll all be done for. You're constantly reminded that the ship's going down at the secondary level. So any idea that something is amiss, any idea that I should be able to get out of this, you've got to understand again, if you like take a Kairoot of the night, he used it that a man on a mission to the collective mind of the city. It didn't come out real smooth, maybe that didn't help. But it's like people with a mission, which are headliners. It's like having these people come out hollering, woe is us. It is akin to, as Kyrick pointed out, a virus sending out its own medical bill. There's no way out. If you buy the headline, you bought the paper. Oh, no, I just looked at it. Okay, right. I didn't even touch it, much less put any money in the box. That is, if you listen, at the secondary level, if you listen to any polarized information, all right, let's quit beating around the bush. Not the depression. Serious stuff like, all of this is a dream. There is no such thing as this. Okay. We're going to meet again Monday? You cannot escape that. Put it another way, we've done this, but some of you should see it. You cannot escape that, which is the prison itself. Which is, from a revolutionist view, if you need it again, is why, to a real revolutionist, to someone actually, no matter what it was called, and I've been calling it the revolution, but someone trying to think outside the ordinary bounds. Somebody trying to think, somebody trying to make the brain operate in a place it doesn't. That is why, right at the basis of it, the religion does not work for a revolutionist. But it's why nothing works. It's just that religions always seem to be the obvious place because it talks about the same stuff. Philosophy does at another level. Not better or worse, but another level. Common sense does. Psychology does. But there is no way out at that level. Because the very things that they are railing against, the very things that they say, such as religion, they start pointing out the sins, the shortcomings of man. As long as you buy that, as long as your nervous system reacts in any way, either good or bad, it doesn't matter. If your nervous system reacts and it says, all right, one of the sins, one of the things that keeps man in his poor position is, and then fill it in, greed, lust, envy, sloth. People aren't slothful as much as they used to be, are they? Oh, yes, they are. They changed the name of it. It's now, what is it, a syndrome, yuppie disease. No, I'm not slothful. I have rye syndrome. That's rye crisp. If your nervous system reacts, if it's whatever the message comes out that, just pick out one that what stands between a man and greater intellectual, spiritual enlightenment is lust, greed. Anyway, whatever it is, if you heard it and you go, how true? That's it? That's it. Do you understand by now? There is no way then out of that. And an ordinary mind can say, oh, yes, there is, because now, I'd always suspected it, but until I met that man, until I met the Pope in person, until I met Rabbi so-and-so, until I met Guru so-and-so, I always suspected it, and I'll admit that. But he looked me dead in the eye, and he says, Libra, right? And I thought, Jesus, he got me. And he says, male. Yeah, I'm a man. And he says, Western Hemisphere. And he says, you seek enlightenment. I went, yeah. He says, your problem, maybe he held your hand or something, and he says, greed. Next. And you stagger out in a daze, and you think, that's it. I kind of knew it. But it took the catalyst of his spiritual insight to put me on the right. I suddenly went. You get the sound of little hands hitting little foreheads all over the planet. I thought maybe but I wandered away and I thought, that's it. That's it. I want you to follow this. You know, this is not sermon time. I'm talking about the nervous system in you and the way it operates. Whatever it was, but if it was greed, and you go, that's it. You do know there's no way out then. And it doesn't matter that a man, because he would be at that level then of the first stage of, nah, and we'll talk for both of us. Ordinary intelligence say, wait a minute, you're nuts. Because even though I suspected it, I did not know for certain. I was not convinced of it that it was greed. That was my main flaw, my spiritual flaw, my intellectual limp. But he saw right into me. He looked, he said, greed. Next. And now I realize it is. And so don't make fun of this, because now, at least now I can work on it. I've been staggering around fooling with drugs and all that crap, and for a while I worked on lust. I don't know. And then I worked on I worked on envy. It helped a little. But I knew something's not, I don't quite have it. You know, where's Androcles, or where's his name? I can't find exactly which thorn is it? And he looked at me, Androcles. And he says, it's greed. And so don't laugh at me, ordinary mind says, because now at least I know where my captivity lieth. Now I can finally work on it. See, that's back to the instantaneous, world-shaking, spine-tingling reality that a man cannot seek his own freedom until he knows the basis of his own captivity. It only took the man 50 years to get there. But there is no way out. If he accepts then, it is. It's greed. I don't care what you say. Don't make fun of me. Now I know what I got to work on. Plus, I ain't got time to hang around here. I'm 50 years old. I got to get busy. Now I know what it is. I got to work on it. New hobby. Because if indeed it is greed, then there's no way out. Doesn't matter. Greed's nothing. Just a word. Lust then. Okay, lust. If lust is your prison, there is no way out. Because whatever your mind will react to and go, wait a minute. That's it. I like that. I don't like that. The eternal tango at the ordinary level is, for those of you of Southern literature interest, they're old Eastern European versions, but they're probably too obscure, but back to the tar baby. You are doing the eternal, it's better than a tango, those of you of Terpsichorean interest, at least south of the border. It's more like an Apache dance. Well, no, that's Gaelic, isn't it, originally? But you're doing it with a tar baby. Now, wait a minute. Now I can get free. Now I embrace greed, figuratively speaking, because I didn't know who to battle against out in the great arena wherein are fought out man's moral combats. I did not know who I was wrestling with or whom. It was like I was in the spiritual dark. Me and that guy on Pilgrim's Progress. How come nobody's ever figured out that that man was actually John Milton, come back to life? But staggering darkly along with Milton, Dante, Bunyan, staggering along in the dark, knowing that something was troubling my soul. Something was holding me back. And I didn't know who it was, but now it's been brought into the light. Now I know it's greed. Now I know it's immaterial to a revolutionist because it's all still on the ship. And you can dance on the A deck, you can dance on the B deck, you can go down the bowels of the ship, but you're still on board. But it's the idea seems to be to people, now I know who the enemy is, now I can engage it. From a more complex view, it doesn't matter, I know. But from a more complex view, what you have done now is, in essence, say, well, I've been dancing around here just kind of, fucking around, wasting my time, but now I'm serious. I'm going to get out of this ballroom, and the way you have found to do it is to grab a tar baby and tango, or those of you that kept up, the lambada, even closer. That's the amount of freedom. I now know who the enemy is. Come here, mama. Greed. And you can say the rest of your life, I am struggling with it. Don't bother me now, since I found out. I've had 2 years, and I'm working on it. I am wrestling with greed. I'll get it. Sometimes I can get over being greedy. God, I'm glad I didn't listen to that crazy crap of yours. I'm glad I went and found that guy. And he said, Libra, greed. Yeah, greed, that's it. Because now I'm getting somewhere. I was just stumbling around before. I'd work on greed a little bit, and then lust, and then envy. And I even worked on slothfulness for a while. But at least now I know what it is. I'm working on it. It's come here, mama. Let's do the lambada until we drop. Let's do the tango, because there is no way out. Now back to, where were we? It would only be a neuro-revolutionist that could hear there is no such thing as a revolution. And say, are we still meeting Monday? It is the reality, in a sense, of the dream of being all the great religious things, but in a more intellectual view, even from ordinary life, of an objective view, of a impartial study of something. Or another way to put it is somebody to hear that there's a group studying the idea of an impartial mind. and they show up, and we go through all this, and you think, well, this guy knows something about it. And so then one night he says, right, everybody stay afterwards, and for $2 extra you get to see the girl take off her top. No, that was another job I used to have. You stay tonight, and for $2 extra, I'm going to tell you the real secret. So you stay, and the secret is, all right, it's impossible for a person to have an objective mind, an impartial mind. It's impossible. Everybody should have left, right? I want my $2 back, please. If anybody was left and they said, are we going to meet again Monday? We'll be back. You understand that they would then be close to having the very thing that does not exist. If you can hear this, impossible to hear something that interests you and not have an opinion about it, not have a point of view, have no magnetic reaction to it one way or the other. It's impossible. May I refer you one more time? You seem to like it. Maybe you're beginning to like Cairo better than me. The reality that told the creatures is a gift. He says, all ideas are made up except this one. And all over the planet, wham, pop, wham, pop. There is no such thing possible as an objective view of anything that interests you. By any definition, anybody's, forget mine, anybody's sane definition, everybody's got to leave after hearing that. They'll make it real simple. Half the people that leave are going to be pissed. Half the people that leave are going to go, I knew that. In other words, half of them go out skipping, half of them go out dragging their ass. It's always the same. To hear that there is no such thing possible as this, and so everybody leaves. And whatever this is, anybody that could stay, and to use, I was trying to drag it a little more into the light, there is no such thing possible. It is not humanly possible, forget it. There's no such thing possible as having an impartial, objective attitude toward anything that interests you. Everybody is supposed to leave. Up here. If you actually could do that to yourself, just to hear it. We don't have to physically make everybody go, but in here, everything that you thought was interested in doing whatever you thought this was, they should be half of them running to the rail, throwing up, or hollering, where's the lifeboats? Where's the lifeboats? I want a second opinion. You're ugly too. And then half of them should go, well, fuck it, I knew it. I knew it was a goddamn trick. I knew it was a waste of time. They become fatalistic. That should take care of everything in you. That should have wiped out your city. Well, that is, wiped out their interest in this, whatever it was. But if you looked around, and after the flood, and you look around in Jamestown, not only is washed out, but here and there it looks like little twigs sticking up, and you find out there's other little neural heads in your own, and there's somebody left going, are we going to meet later next week? When the news that there is no such thing as an objective, impartial view of anything that interests you, and everybody left, anybody that was still left, after everybody was supposed to have left and drowned, anybody left, comes darn close to having an impartial, objective view. Which anybody who would still care to dance with Descartes, I am not what I think, and therefore I could be. But I obviously can't be what I thought I was. But then you're not just Jamestown, you're Jamestown and you're your own flood. That's why you can't get out. Yes, I'm fighting against greed. I understand that, yes. Do you? I'm resisting the flood. I will become an ark. No. You'll become the planet and you'll become the flood. Ah, yes, but I'm working on it. I know. Now I know the problem. It's the flood. The damn dam keeps breaking up there, and all of us here in Jamestown get washed out. But as long as you know that's the problem, you're not just Jamestown anymore. You are now Jamestown and the flood. If we had more time, then if you're really good, then an ordinary person would go, wait a minute, well, that makes it even better. I am getting closer to being a Christian or a Jew. Because now I'm beginning to realize that I am part of my own problem. Let me write that down. Another major breakthrough for humanity. That is that each person who ever aspires to think for the last at least 5,000 years that you know of, each person has rediscovered that. Wait a minute, I could be my own stumbling block. If you say so. I'll work on it, if you say so. I'll dance with this motherfucker until it drops. Well, it sounds all right except for this. I mean, I hate to tell you, but when that motherfucker drops, there's going to be two bodies hit the floor. You and that guy on your back. That is you and the flood. That is you and greed. Ah, yeah, but I finally wore it out. Yeah, all right. Let's say that's possible. Somewhere in your, no, not just in your drink. Let's say it's possible. I'm going to wear it out. Darn it. The thing is, if you ever do, you're only going to have a split second to enjoy the triumph. Because you're going to hear the sound of two bodies hitting the floor. Well, it would only be somebody extraordinary. And I am not meaning, by the way, of you people out there, and even here, I'm not trying to wear you out with the term Euro-revolutionist, and I'm not trying to play what could be. There is no subtle game to this. I'm not trying to make everybody go, well, wait a minute, and try to reevaluate your position to think some of you, well, is he actually saying that this whole thing's a hoax, or is that some kind of test? No, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. Something was caught in my my throat. A real revolutionist would actually do what he or she could do. That's what a revolutionist is. But everyone else has life's collective imposed view of what you can do, because other people can only do that which life collectively seems to tell them, here's what you should do. You should fight greed. You should fight your cynicism in believing that there's nothing important in life to do. Hey, you want to expand the ballroom? You should fight that kind of sarcastic attitude that says, all forms of self-improvement are a waste of time. Only somebody extraordinary. Only somebody whose brain will operate somewhere that is absolutely unnecessary, which if nothing else for these last 4 or 5 nights of doing epilogues, I was trying to get some of you to see again, to say it's unnecessary is not some kind of trick, and it's not to play sham wringing our hands that, boy, we're trying to do something that the world will never appreciate. Jesus. Don't ever fall into that. You just hardly appreciate it. Don't worry about it. Well, I even go home and see my mama or my uncles, and I keep thinking that I'm getting so much more intelligent and more conscious inside, and they don't say it. I walk in now, and it's been several years, and I think I'll show up to family reunion, and I'll just walk in the door, and they're going to go, what has happened to that boy? I mean, I see there's some kind of cosmic glow. If they start doing that, there's two distinct possibilities. You or your uncles and family are back on drugs, one of the two. It would only be a neo-revolutionist that would do what either she or he could actually do. And you can't discuss it. Well, what the hell are we doing? All right. Because everybody else says, well, wait a minute, I can do that. Your own nervous system says, well, I only do what's possible. I'm not an idiot. That's one way I know I'm sane, because I only do that which is possible. I only try to do that which I could actually do, such as lose weight. Well, there's no doubt. I don't want to... I'm just going to admit there's no doubt that there's a lot of difference between weighing 200 pounds and being stupid and weighing 180 pounds and being stupid. So I do not want to interfere with anybody's good work on themselves. If you can do something that has any meaning, it's meaningless. That's part of the point of me saying that you should pick out something stable. You should make up your own stable, tight-run, unfailing, unflagging, unyielding, your own group. And not even tell yourself, just tomorrow, you know how to do it. You start getting up at 5 o'clock and go run. But don't say you're going to do it. Don't say it to you. And quit eating salt. Now, I wasn't trying to quit eating anything, but just salt. I just picked out one that wouldn't hurt you. And don't say you're going to, and sure as hell, God damn as hell, don't say, not only am I going to, that'd be a good one because it'd be good for my health. Fuck your health. If you do it for the health reason, it ain't going to work. I mean, you might get healthier, and so you'll be a 180-pound person with a lower, get the sodium out, it might lower your blood pressure, and so you're now going to be a stupid person with lower blood pressure than you were last month. See, none of that is doing, at least what I'm trying to get you to see, none of that is doing what you can actually do. That was the closing of the car routes tonight. I didn't know whether anybody got it. Changing because you have to change is not much change. And most of the rest of the world wrote in and said, "You're wrong," because they're right. If that was right, the rest of the world's done for. That is, everybody's efforts. You did follow that. If you change because you have to change, you ain't made much of a change. That was the one Celeste read, and then Ben followed it up. The final page was, in reaction to that, a follow-up, was that almost all of the rest of the world immediately wrote in and said, "You're wrong." And they're correct. That's got to be wrong. Why else would somebody change? Anything other than that, if there was any exception to, well, yes, I changed, but I didn't have to. Of course, they could want to fool around and say, well, it wasn't that I had to, I wanted to. I'm going over and pet my dog. No, don't get up. No, you don't have to get up. I always love to believe that when some of you laugh when I drag one in from a few nights ago or a few weeks ago or several years ago and just throw it in, and some of you go, I so dearly love to think some of them actually know what I'm talking about. Fool that I am. More up to date. The king walks in the room and everyone stands up. Yeah, but that's just cultural conditioning. It's just they're afraid not to. All right. Speaking for ordinary people, I'll give you this since I heard the Cairo. It could be genes. And then they could go, well, and that's really nuts. Except for this. When the head baboon comes into the clearing, when the head lion comes in, well, that's not a, scratch that, I know a little zoology. When the head wolf comes back in, just wanders into the room, into the clearing there, all the wolves stand up. Cultural conditioning, eh? The head baboon comes back in. They all stand up out of, well, he's temporarily king. They voted him in, and just it kind of courtesy to the office. Yeah, right. You know what it is. Well, if you're ordinary, you say, well, I'm not sure what it is. It's just just animal behavior. All right, genes. Yeah, but that ain't the same thing. The king walks in and people stand up, and you don't naturally do that. This time of night, I'm sure we don't really want to go into that, do we? I'm going one more time and assume that some of you can hear the reality of this. You could take a group of people, you could look at a group of people and a king, a head of a religion, walk into a room and people stand up, and you could just glance around and even get the impression that some of those people are not native to that kingdom, or they're not of that religion. Then your secondary thinking could go, well, they're doing it because everybody else does it, which has nothing to do with genes, right? I told you we don't want to go into this. You don't want a headache. Well, some of those people stood up, they just thought it was the thing to do. Everybody else stood up and they felt like, well, I got to stand up. Yeah, that's right. That you could not get further away from genes than that, right? Well, at least humor me. Somebody smile like, oh no, I see what you're pointing at. It would only be, you're back to the unavoidable trap if you're ordinary, that if you look in any direction, if you say, I am going to wrestle a greed, I am going to, every time everybody else stands up, I won't stand up. Because that's the kind of guy I'm going to be. You are fighting, from a more complex view, an impossible foe. That is, you don't even know who the fuck the foe is. You're just hollering, I want to be free, I want to be free. And it's only a neurorevolutionist, that is, only somebody can think in some area that sees who the captive is, who the captor is. Everybody else says, I want to be free from greed. I want to be free from sin. I want to be free from stupidity. It's all the same thing. The captor is one. It's all the same thing. The neurorevolutionist doesn't waste his time. There's some things that you might be free from and some things you might not be free from. But the truth is, you can't be free from any of them. Okay, I can buy that. Are we going to meet Monday? It would only be a revolutionist, I was going to say. We'll stop. They could actually do what they could do. It'd only be a revolutionist that would try to do what they could do. Everybody else tries the impossible. Everybody else replays the Man of La Mancha. It makes for a fine Broadway show, and it sold a few books several hundred years ago. But to dream the impossible dream and fight the unbeatable foe, that's somebody else's game. It used to be known as a fool's game, chump sport. It's known as being alive. Well, I can't resist one more real quick. There's this great old, surely, well, I know everybody's heard it, this prayer, maximum, whatever it is, that I guess I'll get it more or less right, but you must know it. God grant me the power to change that which I can, and the patience and the grace to accept that which I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two, which, goddamn, people have been writing that down. Think about it. That's what we've been talking about for the last several nights. It is a crude reflection of saying, there's no way to be free. I can't change anything, and I'm the sort that can't really accept the way things are. That's what they're saying. The prayer is, give me the power to change what I can, and the patience to accept that which I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. What they're saying is, I know there's no freedom, and I wish I was the sort that could face that and not care one way or the other. That's exactly what it's saying. It's a cry, boy, I wish I was a neurorevolutionist. That's my term, you can't use that. But that's what they're saying. God, I wish I could be free. But what they're saying is, I wish I could see clearly to start with that I'm not free. And if I could see that and not give a goddamn, that's the part about, and grant me the wisdom to know the difference. You know, that is one of the world's probably most secure prayers, because an ordinary person will never know the difference. Well, you can't know the difference. If it did, they would have split their brain in two. As always, they would be suicidal. They would have separated the positive wire from the negative wire. And if you strip a ripcord, you know by now your blender will not work. Worse yet, well, almost as bad, your brain won't work. You cannot cleave the two. You cannot say, well, the prayer, grant me the Lord, grant me the wisdom to know the difference between that from which you cannot be free, the primary, life itself, and grant me the patience not to argue with it. That is, let me see that there's no such thing as the revolution. Let me see that the ship's going down and there's nothing can be done about it, according to the guy on my back, sometimes known as he who beareth a striking resemblance to moi. Well, he looks like me in reverse sometimes. Which, again, is to show you how life operates, is where the mirror industry stole the idea. Well, it'd only be a revolutionist who could know the difference. But see, then to know the difference is not to care. It's to be actually impartial. And it's not, you can't fake it, you can't do it any more than you can strip a ripcord, strip the two wires running your toaster, your television, and make it operate. You cannot strip away one of the polarized bases of energy in a three-dimensional world and anything go on. It would be absolutely suicidal. It would be homicide. I was going to leave you with saying that at least what you can do is always try right now and think more than you have to under the kind of internal conditions of supervised chaos. At least I noticed that no one has had the lack of etiquette to even suggest in an anonymous note to me that we change the name of this operation to supervised chaos. Well, and lastly, especially all you people out there, is Be sure and send me in all of your expensive sports cars and all of your Pavarotti CDs. And it was not, by the way, just for the general public. Remember, everybody, 48 hours and those photos in the mail. All right? You people out of town, why don't you come down more often? What I like is sometimes, well, everybody likes gossip, don't they? Every now and then people show up out of these other cities that hadn't been down. They come down here once, and that's it. I mean, they want to shake my hand, give me a hug, and tell me how much they enjoy it, and then I hear, weeks later, somebody writing on said, so-and-so said that after coming down there that he just couldn't come watch the tapes anymore. Perhaps you people out of town should not come visit. But see, that is a limited view. Then you think, well, wait a minute, should I or shouldn't I? And the answer is, good night. Yes.